Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scarish Podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, and this is Adam Diaz. And
Hello.
Today, we have a couple cool topics for you, I think. I really actually enjoyed mine a bunch. Did you do something that you liked?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed mine as well. I took my topic from the suggestion spots that we have set up on our social medias. So I went through some of those, and I picked one from there. So what are you going to be covering this week?
I'm going to cover the Monte Cristo Homestead.
Right on. I've never heard of that.
I know you've heard of the Count of Monte Cristo.
I have heard of the Count of Monte Cristo.
I've heard of the Monte Cristo sandwich.
And the sandwich is the other thing I was about to bring up. I'm a fan of both, especially the Jim Caviezel version of the Count of Monte Cristo.
What's that?
It's just the most recent version I can remember of the Count of Monte. I mean, the Count of Monte Cristo is a book, and then the movie Count of Monte Cristo with Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce and Henry Cavill is my favorite iteration.
I always thought it was a vampire movie
because it has count in it.
Yeah, so okay.
I thought it was about learning numbers because it has the word count in it. So I was so shocked when I found out that was not the case. Clearly a joke. But yeah, I'm going to be covering Folklore from Brazil, which has been suggested to us multiple times by our listeners in Brazil.
Nice.
And I was like, well, let me look up some stuff. I'm sure they have plenty, and indeed they did. So that's what I'm going to be covering this week, which I'm really excited to do.
Cool.
Before we jump into anything, I want to address two things. One, we got some feedback that our ads for our old episodes, because I think a lot of folks are going through backlog, considering that it's quarantine.
Well, everybody's stuck inside,
yeah.
So it's like, what are you going to do?
So they're saying, hey, some of the ads are placed in weird spots, like in the middle of a sentence, and we had partnered up with a new hosting service last year, and they said, we're going to go through your backlog, and we're going to put an ad spot in between the topics that you two guys cover. And we said, that sounds great. And it was working. I went through and I confirmed all the placements for it. And I don't know what happened or when it happened, but 140, which is a significant number of our episodes, so 75 of the regular topic episodes and 65 of the story times, had their ad spots deleted. And I don't know what happened, but it shouldn't even have been running ads on those 140 episodes. So it was just set up through the system to not run anything, and because they had originally been set to have an ad spot, it just has been dropping them in at random spots. A bunch of them that I listened to once we found out about it were just dropping in at like the minute mark.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Right when we're in the middle of a sentence or whatever, and that is definitely never the intention. We want it to be in between the amount of stories that we have for story time, or in between our topics for the topic episodes. So I'm gonna go back through, but to correct the problem, we have to re-upload a full audio file, and I'm putting in a spot where it's, just me to a pre-record a message, and Robin's going to record one too, saying like, before we move on, we're going to take a quick commercial break. That's your warning, because as I was listening through, I noticed something, and that's the ads have various levels of volume. And that's just something that we can't control unless we just raise the volume of the show super loud so everyone's volume is turned down. So once you hear that, it's coming. So sometimes, there's a nice promo code in there that'll get you a discount on some product, which is awesome. But we definitely want to make sure that the episodes are all accessible. And if you folks want to go back through the backlog, you don't have to worry about any weird interruptions like that. So aside from that, I just want to mention to go over to hearusoutnetwork.com to check out our podcast network that we have created called Hear Us Out. And if you would like to join the network, if you have a show that you are currently running, or if you're going to be starting a podcast, there is a way for you to join the network. Just fill out that form and send it to us. We have some questions in there so we can go ahead and check out your show if it currently exists and listen to an episode.
We have a few people that are already turning in applications, I guess, so be one of those people.
Yeah, so we have some work ahead of us, which is fantastic. It's going to be really fun to do research, and I know we had some folks message us and say, I don't know if my show fits the bill. It's really specific. It's really weird. It doesn't have anything to do with, paranormal or true crime. It's like, no, that's exactly what we're looking for. We already cover the paranormal stuff. We don't need another paranormal show. We're looking for something that's unique. So if you have anything out there and you're looking to join the network, then definitely fill that out, send it our way, and we will be happy to evaluate everything that gets sent. So fun stuff, but that's about all we have for special messages this week. I think I'm going first for topics. So
I was about to just be like, happy birthday to you, whoever you are.
Happy birthday to you. I don't know anyone who's born on 420.
I don't know either.
My dad's birthday was yesterday. He was born on 419, so that's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of my dad, I don't have an easy transition for this. I'm just going to go into my script. So this week, I decided to look through some of the fan-requested topics, and we do have quite a few of them. There's a lot of solid suggestions in there. And if you have a suggestion that you've never submitted, please go ahead and hit us up on any of our social medias. You can also email us. My preferred method for checking on like suggested topics is the Discord, because we have an entire channel for topic suggestions. So you can just go in there and scroll through it. And a lot of times people will say, you guys should cover this, and a little bit of an explanation, and it's really fun, and we can interact. And it's this list that just sort of keeps itself. So there's a bunch of different places that we get topic suggestions, wherever you're most comfortable, but I highly recommend the Discord, because you can always see there as well if someone else has suggested the topic that you're also going to toss in on, and you can be like, yeah, like what so-and-so said. So we really feel pressure to cover that in particular, because it's like, everyone really wants this. So that's where I got mine from, and like I said, I'm going to be covering folklore for a place called Brazil. For those of you who have never heard of it, it's in South America, and it's a really nice country. And it's kind of funny because looking up all this stuff about other countries during this show, I really have learned stuff that I've always wondered about, but never like taken the initiative to just Google. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I knew Brazil was big. I've always known that it's a very large country, the largest country in South America, but I never compared it to the size of the United States. And it's roughly 87% the size of our country, which is pretty damn close. But that's when you like include Alaska's like area as well. So it's about the size of the continental United States because it's huge. And I think when I was younger and I read up and I learned about all the countries in Central and South America, I just pictured them all as the size of a state before I actually, started realizing how big some of them were. But knowing how big it is at this point, I understand why several people had requested this topic. And the really fun thing about covering a region or a country is that you typically wind up with a bunch of local legends in the folklore. Not just like one or two, like when I cover something like a state where certain states have certain cryptids and they overlap, like West Virginia has the Mothman, stuff like that. I definitely wasn't disappointed when I started researching Brazil, and right off the bat, I found close to like 15 cryptid/ghost stories native to Brazil, which is really fun. The thing that always stinks when you're doing research, though, and I think this is like a nice little insight into when we're doing research on topics, is that sometimes you find something that sounds really interesting, but you can only find like one or two sentences on it. I don't know if that's happened to you. It happens to me a lot. And the more you look, the more you realize those one or two sentences are just sort of repeated on a bunch of different pages or a bunch of different websites.
Yeah.
And they're all quoting one spot. So you try and find that source. So you see if that source actually had more information.
It's a lot of websites that are like, I'm just going to copy paste Wikipedia.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
Or there's maybe one site that people go to that copy pasted from a book or something like that they were citing. And if you can find the book, maybe you can find some more research. But that is not always the case, which, can be disappointing. A good example of this where I had to actually like just dig and dig and dig to find some information on this is the legend of, and I'm not going to say this one right because I couldn't find a good pronunciation, is the Alamoa, which is a ghost. And what's weird is that although I can find the tiniest bit of information on this ghost at brazil.org.za, it's really hard to find information about this ghost legend literally anywhere else. And if you do, like I mentioned, it's the information that was found on this website, repeated and totally copy and pasted. The nice thing about this is the Alamoa is from an island called the Fernando de Noronha. And I know I'm not saying it right, so please don't yell at me. My Portuguese is not good. And this island is part of Brazil, but it's actually 220 miles off the northeast coast. And it's a really, really small island. It's 7.1 square miles, which is super tiny. But it's absolutely gorgeous. It's pretty close to what most people would picture as paradise. It has beaches, it has mountains, it has forest, it has these coves, it has these waves that are said to be some of the best waves to surf in the world. Aside from that, it is constantly 77 degrees. Like, it varies every now and then. It gets rain. There's a rainy season that's about half the year, but aside from that, it's supposed to be one of the most beautiful places in the world. It was recognized in like 1988, and it was declared a maritime national park.
I mean, that's like almost, 30 years ago?
Yeah. So,
no, 40 years. 88?
Oh, God.
No. 30 years. 30 years.
I'm like, don't do that to me.
It's over 30 years ago.
I was born in 85, so I'm like coming up on 35 years old, and you're saying like, that was almost 40 years ago.
No, yeah. So that's, things change. It might not be that way now.
No, like I found pictures of it from like this year. It's absolutely gorgeous. The 1988 thing I'm referring to is the fact that it was declared a maritime national park.
Oh, okay.
So it's preserved. There's not going to be a bunch of stuff done to it. There's not going to be developments on it. And what's really cool about the fact that it's a park, to preserve it, there's only a limited number of people that are allowed to visit the island at any given time. And I want you to guess how many people are allowed to visit and be touristing, basically, on this island at once.
Is it like when we went to Mexico and they're like, only this day is a boat allowed to drop off only 25 people a day or something?
It's kind of like that, but it's like, because it is a national park, it's like a restaurant almost, where there's a maximum capacity to it. And there's a specific number, and I want you to try and take a stab at it. 200. No. It's actually 420 people. 420. Yeah, it's 420, and we're recording this episode on 420.
He was like, we got to record this before midnight because I got to make my 420 joke.
I didn't say that. I said I'm so happy we're actually recording before midnight, so I'm not lying about this joke. Because I put 420, blaze it up, motherfuckers. 420 reference on 420. I don't smoke, but
we don't smoke. No,
I just encourage you guys. Congratulations!
Don't encourage.
As long as it's legal where you live.
As long as it's legal.
So seriously though, only 420 people at a time on this island, and I've been to bars that allow more people than that. So it's kind of crazy, like how exclusive this place is. What else is crazy is that there's only one hotel on the entire island. The rest of the places that you can stay are what's called posadas, which are like small inns. They give you 3 meals a day, and they're basically small lodgings that can only hold a handful of people, you know?
Well, the fact that they limit how many people can be on the island at once, it makes sense that there's only one hotel. Why would you have more, you know?
And the rest are they're like Airbnbs almost, you know? And what's funny about this is the Brazilian government, this is not a joke, I swear to God this is true, the Brazilian government set up a rating system for the posadas so people know which ones are better than the other ones. And instead of stars, they are rated by dolphins. And
this is too much.
I'm dead serious. And 3 dolphins is as high as you can get. So if you decide you want to travel to this island, look for a posada that's 3 dolphins.
You got to be like, I need an
Wow. And
I don't know how to make dolphin sounds.
That's pretty good, actually.
I'm
not even going to.
What? Not even a little bit?
That's all I got for you. So I know it sounds like this rare, exclusive, and absolutely perfect place for a vacation, to get away from everything, but I should warn you that there is tell of a beautiful blonde woman there. And for those single folks that are going to go and, you know, maybe looking to, as the kids say, sex, you should be aware of this. She appears around the island looking for, quote, reckless men.
So all of them.
Oh, wow. It's kind of funny because I had a joke in there where I'm like, I don't know how that distinguishes between any sorts of men, but I was like, nah, I don't want to disparage my entire sex, but thank you for doing that. So apparently using her beauty, she seduces these reckless men. And while I could not locate if she actually takes them to the Bone Zone on the fuck truck or not...
What the fuck?
What I did find through my research is that she, quote, carries them to their death. Now, I'm not sure if that means she carries them to a cliff and just chucks them off.
She pulls a Viking, throws them over her shoulder, and takes them to where she murders them.
I just don't know the method of murder. You know, that's what I'm really curious about. It does sound like murder by snoo. She carries them to their death in the cradle of bone. Or she could go to the bay and drown them. Who knows? Either way, it said that she's...
That'd be a bay of pigs.
Okay, that was a pretty good joke. I'm not gonna lie. So it said that she's thought to be of German descent. So if you wind up in this perfect, picturesque place, just don't try and take home any beautiful blonde German women. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure you're looking for Pound Town, but you don't need to pick this chick. It's got to be a rarity that there's a beautiful blonde woman on a piece of land that only allows 420 people. That's 7 miles.
Aren't some Brazilians just blonde, though?
I don't know. I've never been to Brazil.
I've never been to Brazil either. I don't know.
It's hard to tell, but like if you do try to pick up on a chick like this, I guess don't be reckless. Whatever reckless is defined as, be very careful and calculated. And who knows, maybe you can be responsible and she won't murder you.
I was going to say, because reckless, like sometimes I'm reckless. Sometimes.
When I read reckless, it felt like unfaithful.
Well, yeah, but you never know. This is someone's translation, right?
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, it could be whatever they want it to be.
Yeah, so just, I guess, don't be a douche is a really good way to put it. And as another side note, when I read this one, I couldn't help but think that there's actually some blonde German lady who lives on this island who's just a serial killer, you know?
That'd be cool. I mean, not like good, but
it'd be amazing. No, it's like I feel like maybe it's derived from some lady who kills men, and people just chalk it up to like, yeah, tourists go missing. There's a ghost on the island. There's nothing you can do about it. So she's just, been hunting down people for that long. And, I think we should go investigate this.
I don't.
It sounds like absolute paradise, and I think this is a good place for us to go. I'm just going to hit up American Airlines on this one and say sponsor our flight. We'll take care of the Posada, and we'll be good to go.
We're still on trying to get to the Stanley Hotel here, so...
Yeah, and that's why I'm skipping. I'm not going to put this one on the patrons. I'm going to say, American Airlines, we've flown with you enough where you should just compass this trip to the perfect island off the coast of Brazil. It would be really nice, and we'll just make some videos and post them for all the patrons. So... Another legend I found about Brazil is a cryptid known as I'm going to try and say this one correctly, the Curupira, and I think I said that right. And the Curupira is a creature that lives in the forests of Brazil. And it looks similar to a man, and some depictions show the creature as very human-like. In fact, most of the depictions I could find show them as very human-like, while other ones depicted as something more akin to a dwarf. So it's something full-grown, but very, very short. That said, it typically has yellow or fiery hair. A lot of the pictures I found actually show it looking like it has hair that's on fire, kind of like Goku when he's Super Saiyan.
Oh God!
But it's it looks a lot more like fire. Most of the other depictions show it as just red or orange hair, not only on its head but on its body in weird stripy ways. It kind of looks like a thinner version of Tarzan if he had orange red hair.
It's kind of like Junkrat from Overwatch.
I guess. Not in any way, shape, or form, but kind of.
I just imagine his hair, because of how his hair is, it kind of looks like fire.
Yeah, a little bit, actually. The eyes for this creature are shown in multiple representations to glow yellow. So from that, you can determine that it's not evil. Because if it was evil, the eyes would glow red. We've learned that through 124 topic episodes. The last trait that is super interesting about this sort of beast man of the Brazilian forests is that for all that it resembles a human, its feet, which are 5 digits just like ours, are actually backwards on its body. So imagine just a person if it had backwards feet, and that's what we're talking about here. And that particular feature is helpful to serve its primary purpose, which is protecting the forest. And one of the main enemies of the Curupira, and I think I'm saying it right, I'm probably going to change my pronunciation throughout the episode because I'm terrible, are hunters and poachers. And not only is it known for protecting the animals in the forest that are hunted, but it turns the hunters into the hunted. So this thing is basically...
This sounds like a horror movie or something.
This thing's basically the fucking Predator. And it's funny because the first Predator movie takes place in the rainforest and the jungles of South America. I'm pretty sure.
What does the Predator sound like?
I can't do the Predator thing. It's just a bunch of clicking. Click, 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 click. No, it sounds like, you're one ugly motherfucker.
Oh my God. Okay, go.
So, it does hunt these hunters and it hunts these poachers. And he uses his backwards feet to leave tracks. Because as it walks, every track it leaves is leading hunters in the opposite direction.
Ooh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it is really terrifying. So they'll follow the tracks to see where the creature is going, but they wind up where he started. So they're just going, to his home, basically, or to wherever he began, and they're going in the opposite direction than what they think they are. And I didn't find anything about hunters, getting skinned alive, or their heads and spines getting ripped out of their bodies, which is what I picture when I picture the Predator. But it does seem that the Curupira will rough them up a bit. It said that he'll beat the shit out of these folks, take their weapons and things like that. That's not to say that the creature doesn't understand the circle of life, though. Clearly, it has watched The Lion King. It doesn't beat the shit out of all the hunters, just the one who take from the forest in excess. So if you're hunting to live, and you're using the full extent of the animal that you've hunted, you'll be okay. It's not going to come after you. But if you take too much, or if you hunt for sport, or try and take animals from the forest like poachers like to do, you are going to get next level fucked up by this thing.
Wow.
Now, in addition to throwing hands, the Curupira can create illusions. Having backwards feet to create misleading footprints is apparently not enough. It's going to make you see some shit. It's going to project hallucinations for you to lose your mind. And I don't know if it's quite the insanity level of what will happen to you, but I speak in very D&D terms in my own brain, so I was like, is this prestidigitation or is this major illusion? I don't know what level of, is it just sounds? Is it an image? Can an image create, or can an image be accompanied by a sound? But I kind of just decided in my brain
that it's like that scene in the second Hunger Games where like one of the sections of the arena has mockingjays with the voices of all the loved ones being tortured and stuff like that. So while it's not like over the top to the extent of like a very magical illusion, it's just enough to mess with your brain. So that's where I'm at with this ability, and I base that on absolutely nothing except what I picture in my mind's eye.
Cool.
So after hearing that, I think, wow, this thing really doesn't need like a shoulder cannon to kill people. It can just make it seem like it already has one.
I got a shoulder cannon. I don't know how to throw a ball to save my life.
A shoulder cannon is a Predator reference.
Oh, really?
I think shoulder cannon is a pretty good reference for someone who has a powerful arm in like a sport too, though.
Oh, yeah, that's why I was like thinking quarterback status, but I'm like, I can't throw a ball.
That's funny.
I probably couldn't even throw a ball to hit the wall on the other side of the office.
That's a lie.
And this is like a 10-foot roof. It's sad.
And we're like 5 feet from that wall right now too. As if that weren't enough, though, this creature has the supernatural ability known as whistling. And while some humans have this ability and typically use it to get the attention of others or let members of their attractive sex know that they appreciate their lovely lumps, the Kurupira's catcalling is what I would call on the next level.
Is it like meow?
Well, whatever it sounds like, it has such an intense frequency that it forces those within earshot to flee. It's just terrifying. So think a dog whistle. How a dog responds to a dog whistle.
Gotcha.
It's like, it's painful. And it said that those that are caught too close to the creature during the whistling are going to go insane from the noise. Like, that's how intense it is. So one thing that this creature absolutely cannot stand, one of its pet peeves in life, regardless if you're a benign visitor just traveling through the forest or a hunter who's taking more than you need, literally anyone who is in the forest that it sees messing with animals that are with or taking care of their young, it will fuck you up. Like, if you are caught agitating...
But it doesn't murder you?
And it doesn't murder. I haven't seen anything about murder. But if you're caught agitating in any way, shape, or form a creature of the forest that is with its children's, you are going to get illusioned, whistled, and likely fudged up. So, just a fair warning. Long story short, the creature is a forest guardian, and if you respect the creatures and the land, you should be okay.
Cool.
So, I was reading through that. I was like, this creature is actually kind of awesome. And it's been depicted in, like, cartoons from Brazil, and I was watching these cartoons on YouTube, and I was like, this is so cool, because it shows, like, stupid asshole hunters, like, think like Looney Tunes, you know? Like, Wile E. Coyote versus the Roadrunner style animation. But it's like a hunter going into the forest and messing with, like, what looked like an armadillo. It doesn't hurt it, but it's, like, threatening to hurt it, and all of a sudden this thing shows up, and, like, the hunter has a sidekick, and the sidekick's like, I'm not messing with that thing, and runs away. It was really fun to watch, and I was like, it's really cool. This is so ingrained in the culture that it's like, this is a forest guardian. Yeah, it looks scary, but it's there to protect from people who treat things badly. So, fair warning, treat things with respect if you're in a Brazilian forest. Now, the last cryptid I'm going to cover is one that the internet tells me is very famous and is from the land of Brazil, obviously, because I'm covering it. The creature is known as, and I'm going to say this once in the native language, which I'm going to butcher, and then I'm going to use the English translation after that, is the Mula Sem Cabeça. I'm pretty sure I said that one right. And apologies again if it's wrong, but I think I said it right, even though my Portuguese is rusty, because it translates...
You mean you're non-existent Portuguese?
Non-existent, whatever. But it translates to the headless mule. So mula is how you're supposed to say mule. I know cabeça, because Portuguese and Spanish has some overlap. Cabeça means head. And then sem means without. So it's mule without a head. So it translates to the headless mule. And this one had some history on where it kind of came from, which is always really exciting. It said that this particular legend started around the 1500s. It could have been going around more than that, but it gained a lot of traction in the 1500s. And nearby South American countries besides Brazil also have this legends that are similar to this one. And as I go through this, you're going to be like, oh, this has similarities to another legend that you probably know a little bit better.
I was just going to say, it sounds like the Headless Horseman without the man.
Well, let me get to it, because it's kind of cool. So, the legend has different variations, but the one that I found to be pretty consistent is the one I'm going to tell you. So we're going to start with this origin story, and back in an unknown time that obviously I'm speculating to be the 1500s, a local woman fell in love with this man of the cloth, and by that, again, I mean a priest and not a Jedi. And the legend has different variations, but this one I found to be pretty consistent, because it's like, little things will change, and I'll let you know where they change. So there's no clarification on whether or not the priest and the woman were actually taking the F train, but they were quote unquote dating.
Your references this episode, I'm just like, Oh,
I have a list of 50 ways you can refer to sex that I refer to quite often. So what is hinted at is that the woman was the source of temptation for the priest to stray from his path that God had laid out for him, and it was not looked upon favorably by the Almighty that this was being done. Even though people are supposed to be tempted, if someone is the object of temptation and are doing it to like challenge someone, I think it was something that was just drawing the attention and anger of the higher powers that can basically put you in your place here. And so this woman is trying to court this priest, and at some point she had just done too much to try and lure the priest away from the church. I will say, all the time in older stories, women are always the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Padme.
So, Padme... Oh, God, we went back to Star Wars. I will say, if you're like, ugh, I hate stories like this, so wait till the end, because it's kind of nice. So, while it is mind-bending to try and grasp the concept of, like, time on a celestial scale, you know? Like the relativity of the passage of time in other worlds or planes, or to try and wrap your head around what time would feel like to an immortal being with omnipotent power, it seems like an impossible thing for us to grasp. That said, this takes place on a Thursday. Don't know why,
my God.
but this is really important to this legend.
All right.
So this lady's trying to tempt the priest, and as this day wore on, her advances increased. And as the night approached, she probably thought things were going her way, because it's like nighttime, you know? Mm-hmm. So little did she know, she was attracting the wrong kind of attention. And as the sun set, something weird began to happen. She started to feel kind of funny. And before she knew what was happening, she started to feel a change, like a literal change. Her body began to twist and contort. Hair, which is really more like fur, started to sprout all over her body. Imagine every movie you've ever seen where a person transforms into some sort of four-legged creature.
Like a werewolf or something?
Exactly. My literal next line is, any werewolf movie or TV show will do. Skip Vampire Diaries, though. That show sucks.
Oh my gosh, we watched like a whole season today.
She had it on the background while we were doing our research, and I'm just like, God, this show is stupid. Who just died? So, when her transformation was complete, there stood a creature with a hairy tail, black-brown fur covering its body, 4 hooves, and a neck that led up to nothing. And it's not exactly nothing. In place of a head, there was fire. And I want to clarify this image in your mind, because you can just picture a mule for this. But instead of a head, imagine a flame. Not like a mule-shaped head that's made of fire. Like, that would be too fucking metal. God wasn't going to allow that thing to look cool.
Metal.
It's like a mule that has its neck end, and then, like, the fire that would be on top of a Bunsen burner.
Uh-huh.
Like, just a consistent flame going straight up. Just make it wider, and then set it on top of this thing's shoulders. And that's what most of the depictions are. There are different depictions that show this thing looking totally badass. But all the things that I read, it's just like, it's just a flame on top of this thing's head. It's not like a fiery head. It's like this absence of a head replaced by, like, the tip of a candle almost.
Okay, cool. No doubt.
Wow. So somewhere in that flame, there is a sort of bridle, like that you would have on a mule or horse.
In the flame?
In the flame. So there's like a phantom mouth that holds an actual bridle, and that detail is important later. So just keep that in mind. There's a bridle somewhere in that fire. So the hooves actually have horseshoes on them, and they're said to be made of either silver or iron. And either way, these are two metals that are typically known to hurt supernatural creatures.
Yeah.
So this leads me to believe that it is another part of the curse, that the woman was cursed with basically accessories on each hoof that would cause immense pain. And I feel like this curse wasn't, when it wasn't being doled out, like when it was being created, and they were tossing all these things on there, whoever was in charge of it felt kind of bad, and they're like, I guess we could just let it spit fire, kind of like a dragon. Because it can, and that's pretty fucking sweet. And it's kind of crazy to me that the headless mule can spit fire from a mouth it doesn't have, that apparently has some sort of bridle jammed into it.
It's like a horse dragon.
It's like half horse, half donkey dragon. So this is basically the descendant of the donkey and the dragon from Shrek.
All right.
So imagine the donkey if it just had a flame of head, or a head of flame.
Flame of head.
So this creature ran around 7 parishes in Brazil that night. And it's thought that the route that was taken started at the parish where she was trying to get smashed at originally. Went around these other parishes and wound up ending where it began. And I've seen multiple versions of the story regarding what the creature's behavior is like when it is transformed. The hoofbeats of the creature are said to be louder than any horse could make, so you can hear it coming. Sure. Super sick beat. It also whinnies, and I looked it up. Mules do whinny.
Really?
Yeah, mules whinny. Let me get this right. Mules whinny, donkeys bray, and horses neigh/whinny. Horses do both. I didn't know this, but mules are also known to whimper.
Whoa.
They make the sound of a whimper. So
What do
their
they sound
sounds,
like?
I don't know. I couldn't find like a soundbite of it, but their sounds are unique. Like even their whinnies sound different than a horse's whinny. And like you can identify them basically. It's kind of a blend of the two animals, but they do have a very distinct sound. It said that this creature will whinny in like a terrible way, like a haunting way, so you know what it is when you hear it coming, but it can also produce the sound of a woman crying or wailing.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. And now this one gets even more interesting, okay? So the transformation ends at sunup the next day. So the sun sets on Thursday, and it remains in headless mule form until the sun comes up on Friday. So
Okay.
it's the whole like kind of moon thing, like the werewolf transformation that everyone's kind of used to. And I think unless the priest that was being seduced saw this happen, since it's supposed to end on his doorstep, this would be one of those situations where the woman who was cursed didn't realize what had happened, or that she was a headless mule for a bit, because she would revert back to her normal form with no clothes and no memory of what happened the night before. So it's again kind of like that werewolf legend where they transform back, their clothes have all been torn off because
Yeah.
they transformed, and they don't remember anything, you know? And then you start hearing like, oh, there's been this creature sighted, blah, 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 blah. But I imagine like when she woke up, she was like, holy shit, I partied super hard last night. Where are all my clothes? I can't believe I got so drunk I woke up naked in the middle of a field, you know? And then she went off until she eventually found out what was happening, when next Thursday at sundown, she transformed again. Because, in fact, and not in fact, this all could be bullshit, but it's stated that the curse would repeat every Thursday going forward forever. So,
That's so strange.
Thirsty
that it's a
Thursdays
Thursday.
for this lady were fucked after that. Because, I mean, as soon as
What
the sun went
if-
down, boom, it was on. It was headless mule time.
What if this priest, though, was like, I'm not into women. Horses, though.
That's pretty fucked up,
Luger.
dude. That's really fucked up. Now, I keep mentioning the curse of the werewolf, but if you think about it, this is like 4 to 5 times as bad because it's going to happen 4 to 5 times more frequently depending on, you know, the calendar.
Right.
Because sometimes you can get
'Cause
4
it's
Thursdays.
every
in a-
single
yeah,
week.
It's based off of a 7-day calendar, which is what's so weird
So
to me.
it happens 52 times a year instead
Yeah.
of, 12 for werewolves?
Depending, and if it was like a really weird leap year, it could happen 53 times. Who knows? Because there's that extra day tossed, and if that extra day happens to push the calendar so you get an extra Thursday, I don't know if that's true. Anyone who's like a calendarologist, let me know. I'm not a fucking scientist. Stop judging me.
Okay.
So we're going to get into some...
Calendarologist?
That's what they're called, right? All right, so
What are they
again,
called?
I don't think there's anyone that's a calendarologist or something that's similar to that.
All right.
All right, there are some additional rules that we need to lay out here for anyone who might be affected. And again, these aren't all 100% for sure, but based off the frequency they've been repeated on the internet, they've got to be true because that's how it works. First, good news. If you're out and about and you see a headless mule and it bites you or burns you or mule kicks you,
Do you turn into one?
you don't have to worry about turning
Oh.
into one. This isn't one of those curses that can get passed from beast to person.
So do you just have to be a really big, hoe?
Well, that leads me to the bad news.
Okay.
If you're out and about and you're trying to fuck a priest, assuming that is the actual sin that caused the curse, this can and most likely will happen to you. What's said is that you can't transmit it, but you get this by repeating whatever the actual affront to God was by the original lady, which it seems like was some woman trying to seduce a priest away from the church. There's other versions of this, none of which I could really substantiate or see repeated more than once, but it really usually comes back to someone that was walking God's path being diverted by someone else.
All right.
So what happens if you're trying to bang a priest and all of a sudden your Thirsty Thursdays turn into Firehead Mule running sessions? Well, there are some options. The first thing I should mention is that some of these quote-unquote solutions are not permanent.
Get a sick-ass saddle.
No, well, I mean, you'd be burned up pretty bad, but these will reverse the transformation, but not rid the afflicted person of the curse. If you happen to know someone who is transformed into a headless mule, or maybe if you just see one and decide you want to be a good person and help out, it's said that you can reverse the transformation by pricking the creature and drawing blood with a pin. So you have to approach it with a pin and prick it hard enough to draw blood. So if you're able to pull that off, the afflicted woman will not transform. It will revert back to human form, and it will not transform as long as the person who did the pricking is, one, alive. They have to stay alive. If they die, they start transforming again. And two, lives in the same parish where they did the pricking. So if they poke you in a parish where they don't live, it won't take. You have to be in their home territory for it to work, apparently. And I know you're thinking, these are kind of weird rules, Adam. Well, there's only 2, okay? Like, Gremlins had way more rules, so don't freak out about this. Now, if you're thinking about approaching this beast with nothing but a needle and you think that's dangerous and you want to try something else, your alternative is you can try and grab this mule whose head doesn't exist and is replaced by fire and somehow, some way, tie it to a cross, almost like you were going to crucify the thing.
The bridle that's in the fire.
So, okay, that would be very difficult. Let me get to this. So, once you tie it to the cross, it's supposed to transform back into a lady. If you're asking how, I don't know. I'm not a professional mule wrestler. I'm just telling you the rules. I didn't write them.
It's by the power of sweet baby Jesus.
Now, the solution, despite sounding much more difficult to accomplish, is not nearly as effective. Once tied to the cross, the mule will transform back into the woman. She'll need to stay tied to the cross until dawn, because dawn is when she would normally...
naked.
She will normally transform back to the female form at dawn. Yes, she will be naked, but at least she won't be a headless mule. So, once that happens, you can let her off. She'll be fine, but she will transform again next Thursday. Regardless of whether or not she's on that same cross, she's going to transform. Now, there wasn't a lot of places I could ask questions, so I'm not sure if you need a new person or a new cross or both, or if the cross thing only works once, you know? Either way, it's again not a permanent solution. Now, if you're looking to just straight up reverse the curse, there is only one known way.
Murder.
No, you keep referencing it, actually. So you remember that bridle that's said to be in this mouth of fire?
Yeah.
The only way for a headless mule to be quote-unquote cured is for someone to reach into the head of fire, seize hold of the, quote, red-hot iron bridle, and remove it from the disembodied mouth. If you can accomplish that, the woman that was cursed will not transform again. She'll transform back into her regular state, and she will not transform again. The curse is basically lifted. And I imagine if the curse is removed and the offense were to be repeated, so someone takes the bridle out of the mouth and the chick doesn't learn her lesson, she's going to start transforming again, and you're just going to be collecting red-hot iron bridles to put somewhere, which is probably not a good thing. Now, one thing that's really messed up about these rules is there's actually a rule where if you tie the bridle back into the mouth of the cursed woman, she'll start transforming again. So if you have that bridle and she's like, oh, I've been cured, and then she pisses you off, you can blackmail her and be like, I'll turn you back into that fucking beast with this thing. Or someone can just take it, and if they're your enemy, they can just put it back in your mouth, tie it, and you are cursed again, and it starts the curse all over. So you start transforming. So it's like, if you happen to be one of these people, you're going to have to take that thing and hide it forever like it's one of your Horcruxes, because you don't want anyone getting a hold of it.
What if someone's just really kinky and is like, I found this, let's try it on?
Well, as long as it's not the same person, it shouldn't make that person transform.
Okay.
Although I will say, probably not a good idea to put a cursed bridle into your mouth one way or the other. So, and honestly, when I thought of this, it's like, it's a cursed bridle. I imagine it's going to stay red hot too. It's not just going to cool off, but maybe once it's out of the person's mouth, it stops being red hot. But I don't know. Again, I'm not a scientist. So, here's one thing. The best rule of thumb, don't seduce priests. Period. I think you should be okay if you do that. If you can follow that rule, you'll be okay. Now, if you don't listen to my advice and you get transformed, that sucks. But there are plenty of creepy dudes out there always lurking on ladies
Lord.
who I'm sure would risk their lives to go to a headless mule with fire spouting from its mouth and either rip the bridle out or poke it with a needle or try and tie it to a cross just so they can see a naked lady, because they're lonely and they're desperate, and maybe, just maybe, they'll be your knight in shining armor, but that's not really a much better situation. I think most ladies would just prefer to stay a mule with a head of fire and just burn those guys to the ground.
That'd be fun.
So, exactly, right? That's what I was thinking. I was like, well, I mean, are you sentient during it? Then I saw, like, oh, you don't remember anything you did? Okay, that sucks. What's interesting is that in some tellings of the story that date back just as long, the woman is not the one that's punished. Yes, she is tempting the priest, but the priest is supposed to stay on the path. When the priest starts to deviate, The priest is the one that's cursed.
Because he's like, he's weak or something.
Exactly. And that is obviously sounding incredibly similar to the Headless Horseman. When he transforms, he comes back on a horse with no head, and his head is made of fire.
But why is he the Headless Horseman? What's the story behind why he has to
I mean, they don't call him the Headless Horseman. That's just a version of the story where he comes back, and he's not a mule. He's riding a horse, and his head is gone. They don't call it the Headless Mule. They call it something completely different.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's like it has overlap based off of very similar roots. But the legend of the Headless Horseman is another thing that is a different topic for a different time.
Cool.
But it's like, this is another version of like that Headless Horseman thing, but it comes from a different place entirely, and it's based off the fact that this priest was tempted by someone away from the church. So I was reading through this, I was like, it does seem like he should be punished.
Yeah,
like he's
absolutely.
more apt to be punished for like veering away than someone who is tempting him.
Yeah, if he's supposed to be a man of God, shouldn't it just be like, nah, dog, I'm good, thanks.
Right. It's just such a weird legend. I was reading through, I'm like, there's fucking rules. There's a time when this thing was supposed to start kicking up. I don't know. I really, really enjoyed this one because it seemed like it's something that was super, super known in Brazil that I never knew was something that was, I shouldn't say popular, but it's something that was very well known down there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are so many more of these ghost stories and cryptids in Brazil too. So we will definitely have to do another episode covering some of them. These were just the ones that were kind of my favorites when I was doing my research. So
cool.
That, my spooky friends, are some tales of the folklore of Brazil.
Thank you.
You're
nice.
welcome.
Covered a whole bunch.
Hope you enjoy that. I only covered 3, but that last one like had so many rules and for instances. I'm like, all right, I got to put these all out there because if there's someone listening in Brazil and they're like, I black out every Thursday. Like, yeah, they need to know these things.
Oh my God. Okay.
So.
All right, so before we move on, we're going to go into a quick break. Quick commercials. Listen to the stuff. It's going to be great. Hey, it's cheating.
I get to scat if you do the message.
Oh my God. Welcome back. We're going to go into our next topic. All right, so this week I am going to go for ghosts. That's totally... this morning... I told myself I wanted to look into ghosts. I wanted to do hauntings. I've done true crime lately. And I really just wanted to do something back to our roots. All right, so we're going to take a trip to Junee, New South Wales in Australia. And to me, Australia is a mysterious and terrifying place in and of itself. And its menagerie of wildlife that's it just all seems like it wants to kill you in a second.
I know it rains spiders, and that's terrifying. But they also have the cutest version of the possum.
Yeah,
the
we
American
got the
version is the terrifying one.
It's just a place where there are big... What are those huntsman spiders?
They are called huntsman spiders.
I can't handle... They're as big as our dog, man.
I didn't want to think about it. You saying that made me want to lift my feet up off the ground.
I know that we as a podcast haven't really covered a lot of things from Down Under. So this week, I wanted to dip my toes into it a little more because I know we do have a few listeners from Australia.
We do indeed.
So hey, shout out to you guys. Junee itself isn't really a big town with only an urban population of about 5,000. So that's so small. How many people do we have in Vegas, do you think?
900,000 last time I checked.
900,000?
But that's in like the confines of the city of Las Vegas. You know, it's weird where they say one number, but then they say like, but the real number with the surround, like Henderson is technically not Las Vegas.
Okay.
I think we're closer to over 1 million, but yeah,
what?
Definitely way more than that.
Oh God. Okay. So yeah, this place is really small, but it does have like a railway station for people that want to come in, stuff like that. So it's not a town that no one ever goes to. The area was mostly farmland at one point. So this particular homestead that I'm about to talk about has witnessed its fair share of tragedy since its construction in 1885. As a country that itself has experienced a lot of change over the years, it's really not surprising because Australia has changed so much since its first days as a continent and starting off and things like that. So I think it's really understandable that so much stuff has happened. So Monte Cristo Homestead is built on a hill overlooking Junee and is reported to be one of the most haunted houses in Australia. But who's to say whether that's true or not? Because in America, everyone's always the most haunted of everything. So
exactly, and especially in America, we don't just say the most haunted in America. We're like the most haunted in
the world.
It's like, have you ever been anywhere else besides America?
So anyway, the home itself, when looking at pictures of it, definitely reminds me of haunted plantations that we might have covered before. And it's very southern with the ironwork around the building. It just has this classic look to it, like old Louisiana type plantation houses, things like that.
I picture the Forrest Gump house when I hear like a plantation house where it has like
Forrest
the wraparound
Gump
porch on both levels. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm picturing in my mind's eye.
We'll have it on our Instagram later so you guys can check that out. In 1963, Olive Ryan purchased the property with her late husband, knowing that it was haunted and believing that it continued to be haunted by the previous owners of the home who died between 1910 and 1933. So,
it's a pretty big window. It's 23 years.
Well, okay. Christopher and Elizabeth Crawley were the owners. So with names like that...
Crawley?
Yeah. With names like that, they have to be haunting something because those names are so fancy. Like, it's just... You don't have people with those types of names now these days. I feel like I don't hear a lot anymore in the news. I have not met anyone. Everyone's named Karen now. Okay,
I have not met anyone named Christopher or Elizabeth.
Oh, well, we do, but like Crawley's such a cool name. To me, it reminds me of Supernatural.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. So too. It's funny I say that too because I was literally trying to usurp your sister's name during game night the other night.
Oh my gosh! So we had I keep looking at the camera like there's someone there. There's not. So we were playing Jackbox with my family, and it was like my sisters and a couple cousins and their husbands and things like that. And Adam and my sister Liz kept being like, the real Liz, or
I started
Liz
it.
Sucks.
Or I started as she put in Liz, and I was typing in my name, and I put in the real Liz. So people would get confused. So I could say stupid things that were kind of offensive, and people would blame her instead of me.
It was so dumb.
And then she started like putting in like the real Liz. We went back and forth, and then I finally decided to sit out a game, and she put like F you, Adam. And I was like, wow, Liz, you're not even using your own name? That's messed up. And I was like, if I win this one, you have to legally change your name. And then I won that game, so it was kind of funny. But anyways.
Anyway, so Christopher William Crawley was the one that actually had the home constructed. He grew up poor and worked hard to a position of health and to become a pillar of the local community. So he just worked really well in farming and kind of built up his status. And they had 7 children. So they had a bunch of kids. They had
healthy
this nice
marriage.
Yeah, nice house, healthy marriage, things like that. The community was like, oh man, these guys rock.
I'm not, okay, I should probably clarify. I'm not saying people that don't have kids don't have healthy marriages. I'm just saying that's a lot of fucking without saying that's a lot of fucking. I apologize.
So it seemed like they just had the perfect family. They were devout Catholics who donated money to the local church and community, but behind closed doors, things weren't so pleasant. So Mr. Crawley was, or is, suspected of having impregnated 2 of his maids, one of whom went so far as to commit suicide while the other's child was treated like an animal. So Christopher died in 1910 due to heart failure and blood poisoning due to a carbuncle in his neck, which a carbuncle is like an abscess or a boil.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's also a gem. Did you know?
I did not know that either.
I looked it up in the dictionary, and it was like, one is an abscess or boil, and the other one is a gem.
Like a deposit. It's a deposit no matter where it's at, kind of. And like if you remove the deposit in the earth, it's a gem. I don't know. That's where my brain's trying to go to connect the two definitions.
Yeah. It was so weird. Anyway, after he died, his wife Elizabeth became a recluse and rarely left the home to see the outside world. Though she turned the upstairs box room, I don't know what a box room is, a place they store all their boxes, I don't know. They turned their upstairs box room into a chapel and kept her nose in the Bible. So she just read the Bible constantly and was just this supposedly devout person.
Praying the days away.
Yeah, and even though she tried to portray herself as such, her staff described her as harsh and cruel and running the household with a rod of iron. So she was just this big old biznatch. And rumors have it that she only ever left the house twice before her death due to a ruptured appendix. So I guess you gotta die before, like almost die before you want to leave. You know, that's absolutely insane.
That's totally recluse status.
She eventually did die herself in 1933, hence the between 1910 and 1933.
Gotcha.
Generations of Crawleys lived in that home until 1948. After their departure, the property was left pretty abandoned for 15 years. during which the property within the house was being sold off, and a succession of caretakers failed to upkeep the property. So you can cue the typical vandals who like to destroy nice things. So people came in to vandalize stuff. It was stupid, awful. People shouldn't do that. I could see ghosts of a past happening, like getting created, because the family was so hard to pinpoint. Like hiding their true nature could be something that creates a sort of aura around the area, if that makes sense.
I also really wonder when you vandalize something for like a place like that has so much memory attached to it, not necessarily good.
Yeah.
You know, if you like evoke something or provoke something based off of your actions where it's like, oh, I really, really loved that chair.
Yeah.
You know, and then something that's not necessarily a good spirit that has this lingering energy is like, you know what? Now I'm going to haunt anyone that comes in this house because they fudged up my chair and they all deserve to pay.
Well, if everyone thinks that you are the absolute bee's knees, you're a great person, but you're actually a serial killer, don't you think those ghosts, like the ghosts of your victims, would be like, I'm going to stick around and haunt you because people need to know who you really are.
Hell yeah.
You know? When Reginald and Olive Ryan came into the picture and bought the house, they made it their mission to restore the house to what it once was. And they created what can be described as a museum, tourist attraction type thing. Olive Ryan claimed that strange things happened from the moment she purchased the property. So almost immediately, they were driving up to the house. And while they were driving up, they noticed that the entire house was lit up. And there was no electricity for that to happen.
That's super creepy.
And when they got there, the lights were off. Like, by the time they actually reached the house, the lights were off.
Did the porch light flick 3 times, too?
I don't think so. But
Haunting of Hill House reference.
Even after they did have power in the house, there were times when the family left the house for the night, like to go out to dinner or something, I'm sure, only to come back and have, while they're driving up, the lights to be completely lit up. And then when they reach the house, for them to be off again. So it's like the ghosts knew, hey, they're out of the house, let's party kind of thing, you know?
Wow.
She reported feeling the touch of ghostly hands and has had her name called to her when no one else was around. And she would even hear footsteps on the balcony. And when she went to go check, there would be no one out there, which I think is super scary because I would hate for there to be like someone on my second floor, you know, trying to get in or something like that.
It's really creepy when you live in such a secluded place with a low population. Too,
yeah.
Because like, who could it even be this
right.
far out here?
Who would want, it's just, you have to go so far out of your way to just
creep someone out.
Yeah. The animals also reacted strangely to the whole place as well. So when they moved in, the Ryans claimed that their cat and dog refused to enter the house and ended up running away.
Wow.
Which is absolutely terrifying. Weird things also happen to any animals that are in the area. So they discovered that their chickens had been strangled in their pens. A parrot choked to death in its cage. And they had a litter of kittens that they were going to raise, and they were found dead and mutilated in their breakfast room.
Wow.
So when I read that, I was just like, maybe one of your family members is just fucked up.
Yeah, that's what I just thought, too.
But it's just so strange in general. I mean...
That sounds like a person doing those things.
Right. But maybe that's what the ghosts want you to think.
Wow.
Despite all that, she lived there for 50 years and collected pictures of what seemed to be ghosts around the property. So there's a photo where it looks like a figure, there's like a ghostly figure above a white carriage, and then there's another one that shows this mysterious hand that shouldn't be in the picture. And there's one that seems to have a maid in the reflection of a mirror. And I looked at that one and I was like, it does look like there's someone's arm there. But after having gone to the Winchester and how everyone's dressed up in their uniforms and stuff like that, it could just be someone dressed up in a uniform standing there while they take the picture.
Right, right.
So it's hard to really pinpoint if they're real or not.
It is rough when you have to just take someone's word for it.
Pictures can be faked, but they strongly believe that these photos that they've taken or that guests have taken prove that the ghosts that exist within the home are real. So supposedly there are about 10 spirits / poltergeists that... Poltergeists?
I don't know how it's poltergeists. Yeah, it's poltergeists. Poltergeist die.
Yeah, so there's 10 spirits or poltergeists that take up residence, I think that's a lot of ghosts for one house.
I think one is a lot.
Her son, so Olive Ryan's son, Lawrence, grew up in the Monte Cristo homestead and claims that strange things happened as far back as he could remember. And he stated that, quote, "It always felt like someone was watching me," end quote. And he claims that there were a series of accidents that has happened within the home that just seemed too creepy to be coincidence. Like, how could all these bad things happen, you know? And his wife is one of the newer residents of the home, and she's only been living there for about 5 years, and claims that she has a deeper connection to the home. So according to his wife, Sophia, she had a past life on the homestead.
Wow.
And claims to have worked as a maid there. And she claims to see shapes and visions as a maid and feeling the presence of Mrs. Crawley. And when I read that, I was like, did you marry him because he owns the property?
Right? That's kind of where my head's at, too.
So it's just a little strange for me that this woman's like, no. I have a deeper connection.
It's really weird if you meet someone and then you tell them, like, yeah, like, the place I live in is haunted, you know? And they buy into it so much. It's like, I'm pretty sure I had a past life here. Being raised around stuff like that, you obviously are kind of used to supernatural. For me, though, that's kind of a red flag, man.
It reminds me of the stupid Tiger King documentary and Carol Baskin and her pictures with her second husband at their wedding. And where she has like this collar on him, and he's dressed as like a lion.
I agree, that's just weird.
Or tiger, or whatever he's dressed
weird,
up
creepy
as.
Stuff. How does that remind you of it, though?
It's just because he shows up, he's like, I'm totally going to buy into this tiger shit. We're going to do this tiger photo shoot. You know what I mean? So it's just, some people are made for each other.
I guess you're right.
So supposedly, oh, that documentary is weird. Supposedly, one of the most common presences? Is that a word?
Yeah.
One of the most common presences is that of Elizabeth Crawley. As someone who confined herself for decades after her husband died, it's not surprising that her spirit would wander the home she spent so much time in. She often walked around in black, holding a silver cross. Visitors claim to see her and feel her presence, and supposedly the sensation of ice-cold air is said to be a sign that she's around. And as legends go, it's upset Mrs. Crawley and you will incur her wrath.
Wow.
So you just gotta be nice. Don't be a biatch while you're in her home, I guess. Guests claim to have been pushed out of rooms and have heard the sound of sad weeping, which is super creepy. If I can't stand crying, I can't stand disembodied children's laughter. There's a lot of things that are just weird sounds to hear.
And being like shoved by an unseen force, I think that would be the thing that would trigger me the most, is like being pushed by something I can't push back, you know?
Yeah. Mr. Crawley is also said to be around almost as much as the Mrs., often seen in the room where he died. Harold Steele was one of Mr. Crawley's illegitimate children that he had with one of the maids. And when Harold was young, he was involved in a carriage accident where he suffered a serious head injuries. And this accident changed him. He experienced a change in personality to someone more violent and aggressive.
Right.
And in order to control him, they chained him in the dairy behind the house.
Oh my God, man.
And they kept him there that way for over 30 years. So they kept him in the whatever barn storage place behind the house for 30. That's just absolutely insane. And he would howl and scream, and kids would, because the local kids and neighbors and stuff could hear the screaming, people thought they had like a monster or something there. So kids would go out of their way to go up to this homestead and try to find the monster.
Wow.
It's so crazy. This kid would scream and he'd howl, and people would just come and ridicule him and just treat him like hot garbage, you know? And when his mother died, it didn't get any better for him. Eventually, locals finally got their shit together and got him out of there and put him in a mental institution. But unfortunately, he died pretty soon after, because a lifetime of abuse had already taken its toll, and it's
right.
Sometimes there's no getting better. When you're chained to something like that for 30 years, that's
horrific. That's like the worst part of all of this.
The sounds of his anguish and chains can still be heard in the dairy. There is also the tale of a maid that seems to haunt the homestead. Because Christopher Crawley was such a creepy fucking douchebag, he impregnated another maid. And at least that's how the legend goes, because no one actually knows if it was his kid or whatnot. But what we do know is that she committed suicide by throwing herself from the top balcony. And supposedly, and I say stress supposedly because there's no way this is possible, there are still stains on the steps where she fell. And it's been so long. There's no way, right? It's been almost 80 years or something like that. It's been so long. There's no way.
You would think there's no way, but who knows, man?
Yeah. So it's the steps that actually lead up to the house. So, I mean, you can go visit, check it out, let us know if there's actually stains there that look like blood. Supposedly, her ghost can be seen around the perimeter of the building, sometimes even walking along the balcony, which is probably why the current owner goes out to the balcony, because she hears things and then doesn't see anybody. But supposedly, this ghost walks along the balcony, leaving ghostly, bloody footprints where she walks. Which is a good ghost story. I mean, come on. But
I mean, it's a super depressing ghost story, but I see what you're saying. It is a solid ghost story.
With the bloody footprints.
Yeah.
The more depressing ghost is that...
Oh, there's a more depressing ghost.
Is that of Ethel Crawley, who died in 1917. And she was only a baby when she died. So a nursemaid actually dropped her on the stairs. And no one knows for sure whether it was accidental or intentional. I can only hope that it was an accident. At the time, the nursemaid claimed supernatural involvement. So she claimed that she had been shoved by some invisible force from behind. And these days, visitors say that they feel a strange atmosphere around the stairs, claiming to be pushed by an invisible force themselves. Young children become agitated and upset. Some feel a tiny icy hand like that of a child holding theirs, which I think is absolutely creepy. But it's just so sad that this maid just dropped this baby. It's just so depressing.
It's super depressing. Like, no matter what the case is or why it happened, it's just incredibly sad.
There was once a young stable boy named Morris that worked on the property, and he got sick one day and was relegated to bed, and he wasn't able to move. Supposedly, a fire broke out and he was trapped in his bed, but how that fire started is a story of conjecture. Supposedly, his boss started the boy's mattress on fire while he was sleeping to call his bluff. Like, you're just lazy, you don't want to work.
Wow. Talk about shitty bosses, dude.
Supposedly, you can hear his screams resonating through the stables, which is so
horrifying.
Awful. Yeah.
How can you differentiate which screams are which? Like, how can you differentiate Monster Boy from Boy Burned Alive in this horrible place?
I think burning alive is a completely different scream than being upset that you're chained in this building.
I will say I'm happy that I don't know the screams of either of those things and hope to never be able to differentiate between the two.
So in 1961, a man named Jack Simpson was murdered on the property, and he was a caretaker that lived on the homestead caring for it after the Crawleys left in 1948. In a community as small as Junee, it's understandable that his murder really rocked the town. On an evening in 1961, Simpson opened his door to a random crazed murderer. A local youngling, so like a local kid, had watched the Alfred Hitchcock version of Psycho, and he had watched it like 3 times or something. That's all the articles are very specific about.
All it takes is 3 times to become a murderer.
And he decided to go for the kill. And as soon as Simpson opened the door, he was shot point blank and was killed immediately. And this vicious kid wrote, quote, "Die, Jack, ha ha," end quote, on the door of the shed before running away. It's fucking stupid.
Yeah, it is.
Apparently you can see what he wrote on the door still to this day, which not sure if it's a gimmick that the owners cooked up or what, because it's been...
Why would you keep it on there?
I mean, it's been 60 years.
Just paint over it or tear the door down or whatever.
Yeah, but who knows? It makes you money, right? If it makes you money, whatever.
And if you're living there for 50 years and you leave something that horrible and morbid on the door, like, I imagine the soul or spirit or whatever of the person who was murdered is like, can you please take that down?
A lot of this stuff really, a lot of the things that happened are really suspicious. That's a lot of deaths on one property. And granted, it is over a long period of time. It's just really strange that so much happened in one place, you know? What are the odds that so much would happen in one house? It's just a lot of bad juju and a lot of history that's kind of built up on top of each other.
Right.
You can check this place out if you guys want to, as it operates as a bed and breakfast.
Of course it does.
And it even runs ghost tours if you guys want to do that. If you go, check it out. Just be careful, as people are known to experience nausea, fainting, overwhelming sadness, and the touch of cold hands. They hear ghostly whispers.
I experience most of those things on a daily basis. So.
And you might even experience some apparitions, because those are reported to happen. It's said that Mrs. Crawley will let you know if she doesn't like you. So make sure you show the home respect and be responsible. Don't be a douchebag. You can check out Ghost Hunters International as well. Apparently they have an episode where they actually captured the sounds of disembodied footsteps and voices on video. Mm-hmm. But who knows how much like Ghost Adventures it is. Like, it could all be fake, you know what I mean? So, I don't know, whatever.
It's the footsteps of someone approaching Bagels to be like, oh my god, your tattoos are so sick, bro.
I don't know if Ghost Adventures has an episode, but...
I thought you said it was Ghost Adventures.
Ghost Hunters International.
Oh, I forget that they're different entities.
Yeah.
So. Right on. That was good. Super depressing.
Thanks.
Really, really haunted place, though. I will say, for places that boast it's the most haunted in blah, 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 I'd say it's, definitely in the running, because that's really, really, really haunted.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff to happen in one place, and I honestly think that the more stuff that gets piled on top of one area, it's just a lot.
And it's a bed and breakfast, so you hear that, American Airlines? You take care. I'm just saying. You fly us there, we'll take care of the rest. So
it's so funny.
No one from there listens. It doesn't even matter. I have a friend who flies for Allegiant, though. I don't know if they fly all the way to Australia, but that would be pretty cool. But really, really good topic, Robin. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
So fun stuff. Kind of. I mean, horrific, but fun, entertaining stuff. So.
It's just a new place that I never really heard of before, and I don't research a lot into Australia. That's not a vacation spot we've ever really researched a lot of, so I'm like, these are all new things for me. So
basically, anytime I research about a place, I'm like, I want to go there. Like, I want to see this for myself.
Right.
So that's just kind of how I am.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So now we have 2 new vacation destinations to go to.
No.
So, yeah, we're going to do that.
Spiders.
Oh, yeah. Huntsman spiders will probably keep me off that continent forever, but at least I'll consider it a little bit. But, yeah, I think that's just about everything for episode 124. Again, if you have a story of anything that's happened to you, please email storytime@scarish.com, because we would love to read those stories if you would like to have them read on our Storytime episodes, which air live 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at youtube.com/scarish or twitch.tv/scarish podcast. We hope to see you there. They air the same day the topic episodes come out, so it's always nice to get some interaction. We kind of get some immediate feedback to people saying what they thought of the most recent episode, and then we read stories from the spooky friends, and it's a really fun time, so please check that out. You can also tweet at us if you have a really short story, or if you just want to give us a topic suggestion. Our Twitter is @scarishpod, and if you want to send us a message on Instagram, which a lot of you do, and we 100% love it. We get stories through there. We get just some chat through there. People tag us and stuff. It's always been a really good interaction. We just went over 1,000 followers on Instagram. That is @Scarish Podcast. We'd love to see you. And one more time, I love seeing the community grow on Discord. We have so many channels. There's so much conversation on there. So check out our Discord if you can. If you would like to know how to join that, easiest way is to go to the new scarish.com. And there's a ticker and it says join us on Discord. Click that. It's at the very top and it'll take you to it. Or you can click on contact us at scarish.com, and that's a form you can fill out, so you don't need to have any of the social medias or an email address. If you just go to the website, click on contact us, that is how you can send us your story. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us monetarily, how can they do so?
Well, I'd like to say that we do have new merch on our Teespring store, so you guys can go check out the new merch on there. There's a link to the store on our website, I think. On our Etsy, we got a couple new things, new stickers and new pins. I'm very excited about the new pins that we have. So go check that out. I mean, everybody loves merch, right? So please do that. And if you are a patron, there is a discount code up to celebrate Adam's birthday. So you guys can use the discount code on our Etsy store and hopefully get yourselves some pins or something like that. And
patrons start out as little as $1 donation per month.
So if you spend $1 and you get the discount code and you're going to save more than $1, it's like you made money.
Plus, ad-free episodes. If you guys want to listen to ad-free episodes, go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. Ad-free episodes for as little as $1. Just join up, have fun. It's cool.
Yeah, and early access to all of our episodes as well.
Yeah, and we have a coffee, ko-fi.com/scarishpodcast. Those are one-time donations. All those donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup. If you've been with us on this long journey, we've been doing this for like 2 years now.
I think we're almost as close to 3 years as we are past 2 years.
Yeah, we've definitely upgraded our studio setup. We keep trying to get better and get better sound, get better video, things like that for you guys. And we hope you guys help us get there. So.
Indeed. So, well said, Robin. Good stuff. I enjoyed this episode. We hope you did too. And I think that's just about everything we got. So go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.